This is a really quick and simple cushion cover for you to make, and I think it looks so modern and so fresh, and it's loads of fun to make as well, because I've got 3 stems here with pom-poms on for flowers, but just to give it that really professional finish, I've added piping all the way around as well, and I really think that makes a difference. It's an envelope back cushion cover, which has got to be the easiest cushion cover style to make, and there's no zips or fuss or anything like that, so not only is it simple, it's very, very quick as well. Now, if you love anything cushion covers, anything bags, or anything a little bit different, why don't you subscribe to my channel? And that means that every time I put something new on here, and I try and upload a new video every single week, you'll be the first to get a notification that there's something new for you to watch. So click on subscribe down there below. Meanwhile, I'll show you all of the ingredients that you need to create your cushion cover. So I have a 17-inch square cushion pad. I've cut 1 square of fabric to 18 inches square. I've already started working on this one, but I'll show you that in just a second. So I'm ½ an inch larger than my cushion pad all the way around. And because the only fabric that I could find with the colour that I wanted was actually quite flimsy, I've put some fusible fleece behind there. So that's just to give it a little bit of stability. And it particularly works well with embroidery stitches, because the stitches tend to sink into the padding. And then for the envelope shape on the back, I'm not using too much fabric on this one. So basically I've cut 2 more pieces of fabric which are the same width, so 18 inches in length, in width, and then slightly longer so that they overlap like so. So you'll have one piece the whole width or the length of your cushion, and then the width of that is about 2/3. It doesn't have to be exactly 2/3, but just so that you get a decent amount of overlap. And all I've done here is to fold over twice and top stitch to hem that. So we'll put those 2 pieces to one side for a moment, and we'll get on with the decoration. Now I've drawn 3 stems just with an erasable ink pen, and I'm going to pop 3 pom-poms, 1 on the end of each one. And I've done them this way, kind of off the side and in 3s, because I think something that's asymmetrical draws the eye, and odd numbers are more interesting than even numbers, so that's why I've got the 3. I'm using an embroidery thread in green and just a running stitch, I'll show you that in a second, to make the stems. You could add leaves if you wanted to, different coloured pom-poms. And then around the edge of my cushion, I'm going to put some piping. Now what I did with the piping, I can just about see it in there, I will unpick that in a little while at the end, but I have a piece of piping cord, and then my fabric is cut on the bias, and it's cut on the bias so that when this goes around a curve, it's not going to pucker. And although I've got a square cushion, when you come to sew around the corners of the cushion, it will be curved. It's impossible to get a right angle, a really sharp point when you're putting piping around there. So I will need that to pull a little bit. What I've also done, I cut my fabric to 2 inches wide, which is too wide for what I actually want. So I've trimmed my seam allowance back again to 1/4 of an inch, and I'm just using 1/4 of an inch piping there as well. Right, let's get embroidering. So as you can see, I've already started. And instead of doing a back stitch, which can look sometimes a little bit messy, I'm just using a straight stitch and all of the strands of embroidery thread. So I haven't split this, it's 6 strands thick. And I'm just doing a running stitch. Now don't have your thread too long because it will knot. Look at that, first time. There we go. So just pull that through gently. And then when I get to the end, I'm going to go back again and fill in the gap. And I find this, I can be more accurate, I can make it a little bit neater than trying to do a back stitch all in one go. And I think it saves a little bit of thread as well, because normally with a back stitch you'll go back 2 stitches, forward 1. Or is it forward 2 stitches, back 1? Well, we're not doing that one anyway. All right, there's another knot there. So just be patient with this. You can always undo it if it gets too knotty. There we go. So in one end of the stitch and out through the other. You could actually use knitting yarn if you don't have any embroidery thread. And of course different colours would work well. You could embroider scrolls and butterflies and leaves. But I'm just keeping this one really easy, really simple, because sometimes the simplest things are the most striking. Okay, almost there. And then I'll knock my thread off on the back and show you how I made the pom-poms. There we go. Now I've used a friction pen, which is a heat erasable pen. So when I take the iron or a blast of steam over the top of the ink, that will disappear. You could use air erasable or water erasable ink. You could use chalk. You just need some kind of guideline to embroider over the top. Now for my pom-poms, these are so much fun to make and so easy. I've got some bright yellow yarn. And I've just wrapped this around my fingers. So take 3 fingers, and I did count because I want them all to be all the same size. 1, 2, 3, 50 times. I can be quiet just a second while I'm counting. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 30, 40, 50. And chop it off. Then I'll need another piece of thread to wrap around the centre. Remove your middle finger. So you've got a gap in the centre, and then we're simply going to wrap the last piece of yarn around the middle and tie it. You may find it easier if you've got another pair of hands just to help you tie the knot. There. So now I can slide that off my fingers, and we have that, so I'll tie over the knot, and then I'll just move all of that out of the way and snip through the loops. It's got to be the easiest pom-pom. Then I'm going to need to make it neat because they are a little bit all over the place with the lengths. And I find the easiest way to do that is to squish it flat and trim all of the loose ends into a circle. Don't get too carried away, you can have tiny pom-poms. Like so. And then open it out and squish it in the opposite direction. And then we can trim these pieces back. And then you'll find that it's a nice, neat, round little ball. Like so. Right. So I'm going to take another length of the yarn to sew this onto my cushion cover. So you'll need an embroidery needle with a large eye. And squish that through. You could use yellow thread if that makes it easier. So there we go, that's it, right. Then I'm going to come up through the back of my stem. I'm going to go through the centre of my pom-pom and then back through to the reverse of my cushion cover. Pull this nice and tight and tie it in a knot. There, and that is well and truly secured. Okay, so up through the back of the next one. Through the centre. Wouldn't it look stunning if you just covered the whole cushion cover in pom-poms? That'd be so cuddly as well. All different colours, all different sizes. Okay, right through the back. And tie it in a nice knot. I wouldn't put this through the wash, by the way. I'd spot clean if you needed to. There we have the final one. Up through the bag. Right through the middle of the pom-pom. Oops, where have you gone? There you are. Make sure I don't pull all the thread through. Back down here again. And that is my pom-poms really secured. There. Okay, that needs a press. I should do that in just a second. When I've put the piping on. Now I like to start and finish with my piping right at the bottom, or somewhere inconspicuous. So in the centre base here, and have a little bit overlapping, because when I've actually sewn this on, that's when we're going to come back and make sure that the two ends meet up and make it nice and neat. And then this is going to be sewn on with the edges, the raw edges together, facing inwards. So my piping's behind here, and I'm going to go all the way around. So I'm going to start leaving a couple of inches loose at the end. When I come to the corners, and I tend not to pin with this, you can pin if you find it easier, but the reason being, when you come up to the corner while you're sewing, and I'm going to make sure that I'm sewing closer to the piping than the stitch line that I've already made. When I come to about here as I'm sewing, I'm going to snip into the seam allowance, just a few little snips like this, and that means that I can bend this around the corner. You see what I mean about making the corners round? It's impossible to get a right angle, so keep that nice and tight as we go around, and this will help keep the seam allowance flat. Okay, so I'm going to sew all the way around, and then I'll come back and show you how you make those two ends meet. Right, so that's where we are. So I've sewn this again all the way around. I've snipped into those corners as I showed you earlier, and you can see I've got a nice curve going around here. And then I've left a good couple of inches as this overlaps at the bottom. So what I need to do is to cut both pieces of the cord inside here so that they butt up against each other. So I'm going to just unpick some of the stitches so I can expose where the cord is. So it's better to have this a little bit too long than a little bit too short, although if you are savvy you could join the cords together if you wished. So let's get inside here. Oh, come on, there we go. Get that going. You can buy all different thicknesses of cords as well. So this is 1/4 of an inch, you can get them slightly larger. You could even go up to 1/2 an inch if you're making a huge floor cushion, and that would look amazing. It looks like rope in that case. Right, so let's peel this right back. I will sew that over in just a second. So if you unpick a little bit too much, then that doesn't matter. There we go. So there's my two pieces of rope or cord exposed. So let's snip through the pair of them, remove the ends, and there you can see they butt up against each other. So now let's cut back the fabric. The end of my cord's here, so I'm going to have that about 1/2 an inch longer. And then on this side, I'm going to cut that about 1 inch longer than my cord and fold that over. So I've got a nice neat end here, and then one side sits inside the other, so that overlaps. So there's no gap in the cord there. And then I'll go back over with my sewing machine and sew across there to join it. You can sew this little bit by hand if you wanted to. It's not going to come undone, so I really don't see the need. Now when I've finished that, I will need to take the two back pieces of my cushion cover and put those right sides together with the front so that they overlap, like so. and then sew all the way around the edge. When I do that, I'm going to be sewing from the side where I can see the stitch line that I've already made, because I'm going to sew very slightly inside, and that means that I'm sewing right up against the piping. However, if you don't get quite close enough to the edge, and this sometimes happens as you go around the corners, you can turn it the right side out. If you still see some stitches on the piping, turn it back inside out again and re-sew, so you're getting really, really close to that piping. So I shall go and sew all these together, and we'll come back, turn it the right side out, and we're finished. Right, so I've taken the pins out. Let's turn it all the right side out and see that it works. Now this is the point when you turn this through. Again, if you see any of the stitches, you can always put it back under the machine and do it again. But we're all right so far. Yep. And there's the final one. Okay, so moment of truth. Let's see if it fits my cushion pad. So the easiest way to do this is to fold your pad in half and just squish it in there. I do like my cushion pads quite nice and neat inside, so you get a nice plump cushion, which is why I only cut the cushion cover to 1/2 inch bigger than the cushion pad. Sometimes with cushion pads as well, particularly if you're using a hollow fibre one or a polyester filling, the polyester doesn't go right to the points. So this is actually a hollow fibre one, because I'm not a fan of feathers, but it's a nice quality one, so you do get the pointy bits. But if you've got a hollow fibre one that doesn't fill the corners, I think we're right here, get some toy filler and just push that into the corners. Just remember, if you are going to wash it, to take that out before it goes in the washing machine. How's that? Hope you enjoy making yours.